In this presentation, we will set up new customers and customer balances using an import feature from Excel within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in the Get Great Guitars file. We want to enter customers into this file. The customers are, of course, the people that we will be selling to. Therefore, we will go to the sales item on the left side. So we're going to go to sales, and within sales, you may be at the default customers or have left off on the products tab. We're going to go to the customers tab. So we are in customers where we will add the customers. Now we could add them one by one, and note, as we add new customers and as we added items and vendors, we can do this as we go. As we, for example, create invoices, we could add customers when we do that. Oftentimes, we're adding one customer at a time. We can add the detail for each customer and do that one by one. Oftentimes, however, we have a customer list that's basically in Excel, or we can export it to some type of database program. And therefore, we may have a lot of customers, a lot of customer information that we want to enter all at one time. So if we're first starting the file, it's often the case that we will import it from an Excel or CSV file. That's what we'll practice doing here. Note, however, that we could, of course, every time we have a new customer, add it here and or add it as we create forms such as invoices. And for example, if we have a new customer and we want to set up an invoice, we could just write the invoice and then basically start to add the customer at that input screen. So that's typically what will be done when we get to the data input day-to-day. We'll see that later on. For now, we want to think, well, how would we get a big list of customers in there? We won't have a big list, but we'll show how to put a list from Excel into the customer section. So we're going to use this import feature. We're going to open up Excel and create our Excel list. If you don't have Excel, you could try using Google Sheets and see if you can then save it as a CSV file and then upload it in a similar fashion. If you don't want to do this data input and you want to just take the Excel sheet and upload it, we will provide that as well. So you could just take it and import it and then work the rest of the problem if you would rather not do this data input portion. We're going to increase the size to 100 or 200. Let's go to 200. We're going to put the headings in there first. I'll do this a little bit faster since we've seen a similar function in the items. So we're going to put name is going to be one of the fields that we will need when we import this. Then the company is one of the fields that we will need when we import. We have the customer balance, and this is the balance that we have that this customer owes us. In essence, the accounts receivable balance for this particular customer is going to be the customer balance, and then we'll have the opening balance as of date, meaning the date that we want to put this balance in as of. So we're going to start, remember, entering the data in January of 2019, and therefore we want all the funny stuff that's going to happen, including beginning balances like we're doing here, to be in there before that time. So we're going to put that in December 31st. Now we're going to make this a little bit wider. So we'll highlight the whole thing. I'm going to put my cursor, I'm going to highlight from A to E, put our cursor between two cells that are selected or highlighted, and widen those cells right about there. So that looks like it will work. It's not quite wide enough for these two. So let's make these a bit wider. See if that's going to fit in here in our 200%. Okay, so that looks okay. So that's what we have. Now we're going to bold this first row. I'm going to put my cursor on the 1, select the entire row in that fashion, go to the Home tab up top, the font group, and then we'll make that entire row bold. It's emboldened. So there's the bold. Now we're just going to add the information. So the first is going to be Anderson Guitars. That's going to be the name. Now we're going to say the name is often going to be the same as the company name and the name. So we'll say copy that. We'll put that as the company name as well. Paste. Going to make this a little bit larger. The balance is going to be 5,000. So we'll say 5,000. Make this a little smaller. We don't need too much space there. Notice that the format of this cell isn't currency or numbers or anything. It's just general in the Home tab, number general. That should be okay. It should upload okay. If it is formatted in say a numbers type format, that I believe should work as well. Then we're going to say the opening balance, the date. We're going to say this is at 12/31/2018. Why? Because we want to put this in there the day before we start entering the data. So that, because what's going to happen when we do this, we're saying this person owes us money, and that means that the QuickBooks is going to have to do a journal entry. It's going to journal entry a debit to accounts receivable, and the other side is going to have to go somewhere, and it's going to put it to like opening balance equity or revenue or something. Something funny is going to happen, and we want the funny thing to happen before we start the business operations, the actual data input. That's going to be the goal, and we'll see what those funny things that QuickBooks does to help us really to enter this data are. So then we'll say Jones Guitars. Going to copy that, right click and copy. That's going to be the company name as well. We're going to have the amount 7,500. Same date, 12. Let's just copy the date. That might be easier. We'll copy this date, right click and copy, right click and paste it 1, 2, 3. And then we're just going to put one more. Notice we're not putting a lot of data that we could put in place as well. We might have contact information, phone numbers, email addresses. These are all things that are really important on the customer side oftentimes so that we can contact the customers. And those would just mean that we would add more fields for that information. This is just going to be the basics just to show us the process of doing so. Our main goal is that and to enter the beginning balances. So we want to make our beginning balances correct because that's where we're going to start with the data input, and we want to see what QuickBooks does when we enter these beginning balances, because it's not a perfect system. QuickBooks is trying to help us out so that we don't have debits and credits, so that we can get going, get on our feet, and in order to do so, we do some things that aren't exactly perfect, not done as properly as possible, but that's okay. And so we're going to copy this, right click and copy. Put this on the second cell. And then the amount's going to be 80,000 here. Note that we will adjust this 80,000 to 8,000 as an adjustment later on. So we're going to import it and then see what would happen if we had a change that would happen, and then adjust this 80,000 to 8,000 at the end of the presentation. So make sure you got 80,000 since there's no comma. I'm going to get mixed up. And then we'll copy this and we'll put that there. So we're just going to add this information, minimal amount of information, but enough for us to get the idea. And once again, you may have more fields than this for contact information. That's fine. We'll save this now by going to the File tab up top. We're going to go down to the Save As, and then we'll go to the Browse. We're going to scroll up to our desktop. We're looking for that Get Great Guitars, the GGG. We're in that folder now. We're in the section 6, and we're going to call this Customers. Something like that. Customers, and save. Okay, so now let's close this, and we'll see if we can import it to QuickBooks. I think we can. I think it'll be okay. So then we're going to go to, once again, Sales. We're in the Customers field. And if we have no customers, it'll look like this. If you have customers, it'll look different. We're going to go to the import area. So we'll see how it'll look after we add the customers, by the way. And we're going to go to the import a file. Then we have the browse function. If you want to see more detail, by the way, of some other fields, you can download this file. So if you have more contact information and you want to see what the headers look like, what headers you should have to make the import as easy as possible, you can take a look at that. And we will then browse to look for that file. We're going to go up to our desktop. We're going to go to the GGG file. We're going to look at section 6, and we want to pick up customers. So we pick up those customers, and once done, it should show a little green arrow down here, or green next, which means like go, I would assume. And now we'll see if it picked up what we matched up the right columns. First one is the name. So the name matches up with the name, so that looks good. And then we've got the company, which matches up with the company. So we put the company, that matches up, that looks good. So our heading columns are lining up. Note, again, we didn't have the email, phone number, the mobile number, fax, website, all this stuff, the street address, all these things are items that if you have a list with them in there, would make it a lot more detailed to enter that for a lot of different customers, and makes the import feature much easier. So what you'd want to do then is just make sure you label those as they would probably be labeled, and then we'll just match up the heading rows for them. Then we have the opening balance, which it shows customer balance. That looks good. So I didn't match it up perfectly there, totally on purpose so that we can see this. The opening balance is the customer balance over here. So that works. And then the opening balance date is matching up with the opening balance as of date. So even if the wording is not perfect, QuickBooks does try to match it up. If it sees date, and that's the only field with a date in it, then it probably says, oh, I'm going to pick that one. That's going to be the one, and it's correct. So as long as those headings line up, it should put the information into the correct data input field in order to get this stuff into our QuickBooks system. Once done, we're going to say next once again, and then here is our information. So we have the name, the company, and the opening balance. Now the opening balance date is a little funny here because it makes us put it in a format that's a bit different than the prior format that we saw when we input the information to the items. So we could go in here and just adjust the date. Notice it wants the year, then month, then date. That's really useful for some, when you work with database programs and whatnot, oftentimes they want that format because it can sort by the year first, and then the month, and then the date. So that that is often really good for filing purposes too. If we wanted to file something year, month, and then date is probably better than month, day, year. So in any case, we'll do that for them. We're going to say that we want this to be 2018 dash, and they wanted year, month, which is 12, and day 31. See if it takes that. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and copy this down. Now, if we had a whole lot of data input and the system didn't accept this, we could go back into Excel and adjust the date format here. We could do that, and then we can adjust the date input if we so choose. And notice it's a little tricky just to show you how to do this. You can right-click on it, you can format the cells, and you can look for the date field, and notice it doesn't really have that date field. It doesn't really show, what was it, the year, the month, and then the date. So what you can do is you go down to custom, and what you'd like to see is something like the year, the month, and the date. So this YYY is the year, and then you'd like to see the month, which would be MM, and then the day would be DD, and then see if we can delete the stuff before it. So we'd like it to see something like that, year, month, date, and they had dashes instead of, so if we could change it to something like that, we could say, okay, and then you got the year, month, and day. So I'll let you take a look at that. If we input it in this format, you can get it there. Again, it's a little unstandard for just looking at the information, but it is helpful when sorting information by the year, the month, and then the day. That would make sense. So we're going to go back over here, and I'm just going to copy this. Hopefully this is the way they want it. Paste it here, and that should be enough. That's quick enough. Again, if you had a whole lot of fields, you might want to just re-input it in Excel. If not, you can copy and paste them. That's not too bad. And then we'll go ahead and import. And there we have it. We have our customers now. We've got Anderson, Jones, and Smith for our customers. If we were then to add, say, an invoice or something, if we were to bill someone, we can go to the plus tab, invoice, and then up top in the customers in the invoice, we could select the customer, and here are our 3 customers. So we can select them and add the customer there and go through the detail for it. Now note that if we wanted to go here and just add a new customer, we can do it from this field. We can say add, and then it's going to give us more detail. If we need more detail, it'll give us the detailed screen, and we can add that information. So note, in the future, we will be adding customers, and we'll do it as we add the invoice typically. When we first start the company, however, we often have a lot of customers that we want to add, and the import is the easiest way to do it. Also note these beginning balances now. What is QuickBooks going to do with those? Because that means these people owe us money. So if we go to the reports then, left side, we're going to say people owe us money. That's going to be on the balance sheet. That's a balance sheet account called accounts receivable. So here is the accounts receivable, $92,500. You might say, well, we didn't enter $92,500. We didn't enter it to accounts receivable, but we put the beginning balances to the customer, which QuickBooks, of course, assumes goes into accounts receivable. If we click on that and zoom in on it, and we change the date range to 2018 up top. Whoop, let's go 010118. Run that report. Then here's our information. So notice what QuickBooks did. We didn't enter any invoice, right? So QuickBooks is going to use the form that it thinks is most appropriate, even when we don't use that form oftentimes in the data input. And the form most appropriate typically for the increase in accounts receivable is an invoice. So it actually created invoices for these beginning balances that we made. If we select this item, we'll go to an invoice screen. Here's an invoice. We didn't make this invoice. What we did was put the information into the data input screen for opening balances or as we entered the customers. So just be aware of that. QuickBooks will do that. You know, it's trying to help us out, make things easier, but it's also going to go back to the default using forms whenever it makes something and enter that. The more proper way to enter these beginning balances would probably be with a journal entry. But the whole QuickBooks is trying not to do that because we want to make it as easy to set up for people that don't know journal entries as possible. Now the downside to this is if we go back up top and go back to the report summary, the downside is QuickBooks has to do something with the other side. So notice where it put it. It put it to retained earnings. So the other side is just going to retained earnings. How does that happen? That's kind of funny. Well, we made, QuickBooks made an invoice. So that means the other side, when you make an invoice, increases sales and it increases accounts receivable. So let's take a look at what the profit and loss. So let's go to the reports and see if they put something to profit and loss. Go to profit and loss. And I'm going to change the date up top to be the year 2018. So 010118, 12/31/18, and run that report. And you'll see we have sales, 92,500. Again, if we double click on it, it's those three invoices. So this is where we have to say, I don't want this to happen in the current year where we enter data. It's fine that it happens in December 2018. This is the messy stuff that happens. But as we get to 2019, it'll be gone. Why? Because the income statement's going to roll into retained earnings. So in other words, if I was to change this date to 010119, 12/31/19, run that report, it's gone. So that means the activity in the temporary accounts, the profit and loss accounts, are not affected, even though if you go back to when we entered the data, 2018, funny stuff happened. We had income that shouldn't be there because QuickBooks is trying to make the thing in balance. So that's why when we enter the beginning balances, when we use QuickBooks system of entering beginning balances, we got to make sure we do it before we start entering the data. That's what we're going to practice doing, and then it'll all roll out to the balance sheet. So if we go back to the balance sheet, reports up top, and if we go back to the balance sheet and change, or the dates are in January, it all rolls in to the balance sheet. If I change the date, for example, 010118 to 12/31/18, run that report, you'll see that net income has the information, not retained earnings. Why? Because net income is what was on the income statement. Net income is that 92,500. And then it'll roll over to retained earnings. So if we scroll back up and then say we want 2019 and say 12/31/2019 and say run that report, now it's in retained earnings, which is kind of where it should be. So I don't know when we earned the money. I don't know how long ago it was that these people that we earned it, or why they even owe us money. All we know is they owe us money. And supposedly the other side should probably go to some type of equity, retained earnings, or capital in some way, and that's where it should go. So we'll have to adjust anything out of opening balance. We got to be aware of these beginning balances, and we just need to, if we do this, all this messy beginning balances stuff before the date we start entering the data input, it will work out easier for us. Last thing we want to do is ask the question, well, what would happen if we messed up the beginning balance and we need to adjust it? There's a couple different ways we can do that. If we go into one, we can go into the balance sheet as we did here, see that we have the accounts receivable, and drill back in on it using the quick zoom, clicking on the 92,500. And then we're going to change the dates to go back to 2018 because remember it's in there as of 12/31/2018. So I'll just make this 2018, run that report. And so here is our information. Now let's say, well, this 80,000, let's say that should be 8,000. We're going to make that change then. The nice thing is we can use the quick zoom here again, and it made an invoice, so we have something that we can go back to and make an adjustment to, that form. So we'll go in there and we'll say it's not the same data input screen that we saw before, but we know that this form is the tool that QuickBooks used to input the information. We can then change this field and we can make it 80,000 or 8,000, and then change that, save the report, and that'll give us the information for the 8,000, and then close this back out, and there we have it. So the change will be input there. So note that we can't go back to the data input screen that we used to input the information as we input the document, or we input the Excel file or imported the Excel file, but we can go back into the information that QuickBooks provided, the tool it used, which was an invoice. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.